This video is about cost advantage, one of the fundamental strategies of business. Cost advantage explains how to make competitors cry about your low prices as you gain greater market share or profit margins. To talk about the fundamental strategies of business, we must first talk about the two most basic reasons customers will buy our product. Customers will buy our product because it is different or better than competitors. And customers will buy our product because it costs less than our competitors. This video will focus on the latter. Now, cost advantage is when a firm reduces its costs below its competitors. Then beating their prices will increase its market share, or matching competitors' prices will increase profits. The cost advantage, also known as cost leadership strategy, is to offer lower cost products with competitive levels of features and quality. They must be good enough. For instance, I can offer a car for a lot cheaper as long as you don't mind it missing a few things. However, in this example, most customers will not find this to be a good enough car. Now, these products are usually no-frills standardized products for typical customers. The focus here is on efficiency so that costs are lower than competitors' costs. We see this with Amazon and Walmart's strategy. The sources of cost advantage are economies of scale, learning and experience effects, proprietary knowledge savings, lower input costs, and a different business model. Economies of scale is the reduction in cost per unit due to increases in efficiency of production as the number of goods being produced increases. Economies of scale arise from four primary sources: spreading out fixed production cost and non-production costs across units, and the specialization of equipment and people. Scale allows you to spread out costs. For instance, fixed production costs are less per unit when spread over more units. So a factory's rent is the same whether you're producing 1 unit in that factory or 10,000 units. Similarly, non-production costs such as R&D, advertising, finance, and administrative costs can be spread over more units. Here's an example of scale economies at work in soft drink advertising. The advertising budget for Coke is significantly larger than that of Schweppes. However, due to the much higher sales volume, that advertising cost per case is only 4 cents instead of 20 cents because it is spread over so many more cases. Scale allows for specialization. Firms with small volume cannot support high levels of employee specialization. All of the employees have to wear a lot of hats. This lack of expertise and/or experience reduces task efficiency. Alternatively, they do hire specialists, but without enough work to keep them busy, this reduces payroll efficiency. Similarly, a firm with high volumes is able to purchase and use specialized equipment or tools that a small firm simply cannot afford. While there are many advantages to scale, scale can turn into a disadvantage during an economic downturn. This is because firms can no longer spread out their fixed costs as much when demand decreases, forcing lower production volumes. One way firms may respond to this is by lowering their prices or holding other promotions to help maintain demand so that they can continue to have that scale advantage. Other ways that firms can respond to this concern are by shifting more of their cost structure from a fixed to a variable cost. For instance, outsourcing something to make those costs more variable. They can also diversify into other areas of business or industries that are counter-cyclical. Here's an example of the disadvantages of scale in a downturn. From 2002 to 2006, you can see how the larger airlines posted far greater losses than the smaller ones. This is because their large fleet of planes were still on the books being paid for by the companies, where the smaller companies did not have nearly those large fixed assets that they had to keep full with passengers to make a profit. As economies of scale is an important topic that students often struggle with, feel free to check out our other video on why scale matters for small businesses, link in the description. We can lower costs with learning and experience. People get faster with repetition. Think about when you were learning how to tie your shoe and how slow it was compared to how fast you can tie it later. People also will figure out faster ways to do things, improving the process. People will identify repetitive tasks that can be replaced with machines. And finally, people can identify changes in the product's design that could reduce manufacturing time and/or input material waste. Here's an example from the semiconductor industry. As you can see, as cumulative volume has increased over time, the average cost has decreased by a 20% decrease with each doubling of volume. This brings us to the law of experience. Variable and average costs per unit will decline by a constant percentage each time the cumulative output doubles. There are several implications of the scale experience curve. First movers in a fast-growing market will secure a widening cost advantages, so a firm must grow as fast or faster than rivals or be at a cost disadvantage. This is behind the be number one or be number two or exit philosophy. This can provide a basis for planning future prices and pricing for a specific production run or contract. It can also be used for predicting future market share pricing trade-offs. The scale experience curve can provide data on how much cost would likely decrease due to cost synergies if two firms combined their volume and scale. And finally, the scale experience curve can be plotted for a firm and its competitors to assess how well each company is managing its costs. Companies moving away from the curve may not be managing their costs very well. There are limitations of the experience curve. Growing market share can move a firm down the curve, but it does not guarantee substantial cost advantages. First of all, what was the cost of getting that market share? Oftentimes, there's advertising or other costs to grow the market share. Also, the learning curve will flatten out with high experience due to the geometric nature of it's only a percentage increase for every doubling of the cumulative output. Spillovers of knowledge to rivals can lower their costs of learning. For instance, a more efficient process may become an industry best practice and then is no longer an advantage to you. And finally, aging equipment can impede the continued learning and cost advantages as that equipment slows you down. Lower costs can also be achieved with proprietary knowledge. Consider some of the principles of Toyota's production system. They use a pull system to avoid overproduction. They use just-in-time delivery to reduce inventories. They have an internal process to level out workloads and smooth production. They use visual controls to illuminate problems and reduce defects. They have another process to find bottlenecks and increase productivity. And finally, their corporate culture prizes rather than punishes learning from mistakes. So Toyota's production system is very successful, but very difficult to imitate due to multiple internal processes and a corporate culture that supports it. Elon Musk discusses the difficulty of maintaining quality while ramping up production, as well as the learning process in a recent interview.
Friends can ask me, when should they buy a Tesla? I'm like, well, either buy it right at the beginning or when the production reaches steady state. But during that production ramp, it's super hard to be in vertical climb mode and get everything right on the little details. One of the things that was happening when we were ramping production was the paint wasn't necessarily drying enough. So it's well, if you go faster, it's like you just discover these things. So if we knew them in advance, we'd fix them in advance.
Next, we can lower our overall costs by lowering our input costs. Inputs are resources such as people, raw materials, energy, information, or financing that are put into a system to attain a desired output. The primary ways to cost advantage with lower cost inputs are exercising strong bargaining power over suppliers. For instance, Walmart, due to its market strength, can extract extra special deals from their suppliers. Cooperating especially well with suppliers. Toyota works very closely with their suppliers, and they often locate at the same geographic location, which then saves both companies money. Getting inputs from low-cost locations. For instance, Nike having overseas labor make their shoes. And finally, arranging better access to inputs than other firms. De Beers has done this through largely cornering the diamond mines. One of the ways to achieve a cost advantage is through a different business model. One of the ways to achieve a different business model is through reconfiguring the value chain. For instance, you could eliminate a value chain activity. Specifically, you could eliminate retail stores. So this is what Amazon.com did in the early days. Barnes & Noble had an extensive network of retail stores, which gave it a competitive advantage of scale against other bookstores. However, Amazon changed the business model and removed the retail stores, thus saving that expense and allowing them to sell their books more cheaply. So what are the risks of a cost advantage strategy? First, you could lose the cost advantage to competitors due to newer technologies. There could be a change in customers' needs that results in customers no longer finding your cost leader product good enough. Customers could decide that the value difference between your cost leader product and a differentiated product is no longer worth the cost savings. And finally, competitors could find a way to imitate your cost leader advantage through their own unique, different strategic actions. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch another one right now and learn even more. Or subscribe for future videos. If you have any questions about this topic, leave them in the comments and they may be featured in an upcoming Q&A video.